Let's talk about some top wide receiver free agents that New England can target this offseason, because there is zero secret that the wide receiving core for New England is not very great. But that's okay, because that means there's plenty of room to improve and possibly go out there and get a very big name. So before we hop into that, I just want to ask you guys right off the bat, who is the top wide receiver free agent target that you would like to see play for New England in 2025? There are several wide receivers hitting that market later this year, and I'll break those down towards the back end of this show. But before I jump into the top wide receiver targets, I do want to talk about New England's core right now, because we know that we have a new rookie quarterback in Drake May, and we needed him to kind of develop before we could really establish who our wide receiver one was going to be. But I think that since we have 13 games under our belt, it's fairly safe to say that DeMario Douglas, he's going to be New England's top receiver this year. That is how his stats are going to play out if they continue the next 4 games. However, the top pass catcher is Hunter Henry, and then Austin Hooper, and then it goes to DeMario Douglas. So when you look at Pop Douglas's numbers throughout the year, 52 receptions for just slightly under 500 yards on 70 targets, and he only has 1 touchdown. We know that Ramondre Stevenson has scored the most touchdowns for New England. He has 6 on the ground. But I also think it's fairly safe to say that Pop Douglas has been a little bit underwhelming. And I know that it goes a long way because your offensive line is bad. You started with Jacoby Brissett, and then you moved to Drake May, so it's kind of hard to establish a good passing game. So I understand that it's not entirely Pop's fault. But to have him be the top wide receiver and we're 13 games in and he's not even at 500 receiving yards yet, it's a little bit underwhelming to what he could possibly have done this season with Drake May. But there's a lot of factors that do go into that. Just like how there's a lot of factors that go into the Patriots' worst receiver this year, which has been Jalen Polk. You really can't point your finger at Javon Baker and say you've been the worst, because he really hasn't had the most attempts to be the type of receiver that he wants to be. Polk has 12 catches on 31 targets. I'm not good at math, but I'm going to say that's less than 50%. 87 yards on 12 catches. And yes, he does have 2 catches for a touchdown pass, but each have been under 5 yards. So Jalen Polk, safe to say, he's the worst receiver so far this year. But he's also a rookie, and this is not an easy adjustment for somebody to come play in Washington and now come play in New England, and you're changing from college to the NFL. And it's clear Jalen Polk has got the yips of some sort, because he is dropping passes that are hitting him in the triangle, hitting him in the chest, abdomen, the back shoulder. I mean, catches that we saw him devour in the preseason. So something mentally is going on with Jalen Polk. And then we did have an insider for New England actually confirm that mentally Jalen Polk is probably at his worst right now. Doug Keed broke down that team sources believe Polk is struggling mentally with mistakes and that he's hard on himself. So the issues are compounding. So once you kind of are already struggling a little bit with just catching the rock from Drake May, and you tag that on to a guy that is right now currently struggling mentally, you know that if you have struck out 3 of the last 4 at-bats, you're not going to go into that 5th at-bat with the utmost confidence saying, this is when I end it. You're going to go in with a little bit of perseverance saying, well, I could strike out for a 4th time out of 5 at-bats. So that's kind of what Jalen Polk is figuring out right now. But the good news is that Gerard Mayo said that the last 4 games, since New England is pretty much fighting for nothing right now, except for maybe the first draft pick, he does want to get a lot more of those younger players in. So we could see Javon Baker. We could see a lot more of Jalen Polk. And so hopefully on these last 4 games, Polk can kind of get out of his own mental hump and really showcase what he can do, because there's no secret. The Patriots are going out there and they're going to get a wide receiver. They're going to try to get a top wide receiver. That is no discussion. So if Polk wants to have any type of play next year, these next 4 games will be crucial. So before I jump into those free agents that I promised I would deliver, grade the Patriots receiving core here for New England this year. A, B, C, D, or F. I'm going to go with C-. I know there's a lot of factors that can contribute to why the passing game hasn't been that great, but also if you had a top wide receiver, it would make it a lot easier. So I'm going to go with C- here. You guys go ahead and comment that down below. I'm going to hop into those free agents in just 1 second, because if you guys want to go see the Patriots in action for the last 4 games this season, you need GameTime. This is the only app I use to get tickets to any sporting event, concert, comedy show, or maybe maybe even the theater. Not to mention last night, right after I watched a long day of football on my TV, I wanted to go see some action in real life. So my brother's in-laws are in town. My boyfriend's in-laws are in town. So we took them to their very first Dallas Stars game. The NHL game never disappoints. And they said, oh, let's go and get tickets. I said, I know exactly where I'm going to go. Game time. I got these tickets and a nice little section as well, because Game Time picks actually filtered out all the fluff so that I could get the best deal on the best seats for what I was looking for. I got these tickets for 10% off just cause. And they were phenomenal seats, and the Dallas Stars ended up winning. So if you guys want to go on ahead and get your tickets to go see the Patriots, the Bruins, the Red Sox, the Celtics, well, here's what you have to do. All you guys have to do is just download the Game Time app, use promo code CHATSPORTS. This will get you $20 off your first time buying tickets while terms apply. One more time, download Game Time, create an account, and use promo code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase buying tickets while terms do apply. What time is it? It's game time. Obviously, the top wide receiver free agent target we're talking about here is Mr. Tee Higgins, who wants out of Cincinnati. And the Bengals have not had a very successful year, the year they thought they were going to have. And Tee Higgins is going to be looking for a top market that is going to make him a priority. Well, Tee Higgins, we don't have any priorities except you, my friend. Jeremy Fowler recently did address that Tee Higgins will probably not be in Cincinnati next year as he does hit the free agent market. There's little to no chance Higgins is in Cincinnati beyond 2024. People I've talked to feel pretty strongly about that. Barring a major surprise, a second franchise tag would cost the Bengals around $26.2 million on a one-year rental. Higgins wanted out of Cincinnati last offseason, and the Bengals will likely allocate resources for a Chase contract. Higgins will have a strong market because the number of receiver-needy teams in Higgins' wide receiver 1 traits. Right now, he's wide receiver 2, which is saying a lot because the guy has been phenomenal the last 4 years. And with the Patriots having over $100 million in cap space, they should absolutely be able to obtain somebody like a Tee Higgins. Right now, he'd be your top wide receiver. He's had 1,000 receiving yard seasons. We haven't seen a 1,000 receiving yard season in the last 3 years. Tee Higgins would automatically make Drake May a better quarterback. He would allow Gerard Mayo to really expand the playbook. Same thing as Alex Van Pelt, because we know they haven't been able to run a lot of flashy plays because they don't have the flashiest targets. I think that right now, if Elliott Wolf, who's the acting GM right now, could come and pull in Tee Higgins in free agency, it would stamp the approval in all of New England fans to get a wide receiver like this. The only thing with Higgins is, yes, he's looking for money, but I'm sure he's also looking to win. While he can win in New England, there are going to be teams out there looking for a wide receiver that have a better record than New England does right now. So you may have the same thing as last offseason with a swing and a miss at trying to get a top name like Tee Higgins this year. So, in case he ends up on YouTube this offseason and he finds this channel and he's thinking maybe he wants to come to England, I want him to see the love in the comment section down below. If you want Tee Higgins to be in a Patriots uniform next year, go on ahead and spam 85 in the comment section down below. I know that's Hunter Henry's number right now, but we can talk about the logistics later if Higgins does come to New England. So I'm going to take a step down here real quick, and I'm going to go with Elijah Moore from the Cleveland Browns. A lot less flashy, but a little bit more stable and secure for New England to maybe not hit a home run with this top free agent, but to at least get a ground rule double or maybe even a triple. When you look at a guy like Elijah Moore, he's got a good frame. He's obviously taller than DeMario Douglas, and right now he's had a pretty good year for the Cleveland Browns. 50 receptions, 447 yards, 1 touchdown, and his longest catch comes from 44 yards. And we know Drake May has a cannon of an arm, and he loves to hit the long routes with Tyquan Thornton, Kendrick Bourne, and Kayshon Boutte, whereas Pop Douglas is more of his quick slant guy. But the thing about Elijah Moore is that he has pretty much the exact same numbers as Pop Douglas right now, and they've had a worse offense, in my opinion, than the New England Patriots. Yes, of course, Jameis Winston does make them a little bit better, but Deshaun Watson wasn't the answer. So we know that he's kind of working right now with not a flashy offense, and if he's going to be a free agent, you can get him for cheap next year. Right now, he's about $3.5 million, and he could easily become your top wide receiver. The last couple of years, he's been putting up pretty good numbers for a New England Patriots offense. Once again, it's a lot less flashy than a Tee Higgins, a Jamar Chase, or maybe even a Stephon Diggs, but he's obtainable. Not a lot of wide receivers are going to be just overwhelmed to come to New England because of what they've seen this last year. And that's okay. It's a rebuild. But if you slowly start to gain other players like an Elijah Moore, who can be a very good wide receiver too next to a guy like Tee Higgins, it can start to attract more flies to come to New England. And that's why I think if you don't swing for the fences again like Brandon Ayuk, Calvin Ridley, and maybe just go out and just incrementally get better, well, then that can lead to success in the next coming years. But if you really do want to go out there and get a guy that could possibly bolster your team immediately, like a Tee Higgins, I'm looking at Hollywood Brown. I know. There's been no highlights of him the last season because he has been injured, but Hollywood Brown, he's a veteran, right? He's 27 years old, so he's not as old as like a D-Hop right now. But if you do look at somebody like Marquise Brown, because the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously with Patrick Mahomes, arguably the best quarterback in the NFL, he has several different receivers and several different pass catchers on that team. And Marquise Brown was expected to be the top free agent coming into Kansas City this year, but with that injury, he hasn't had any stats. So Kansas City may be willing to let this guy go, maybe for a price that they somewhat paid, to come to a team that needs a veteran, that needs a stable pass catcher, and he is going to return this year. So if he does end up playing in 1 or 2 games, maybe in the postseason for Kansas City, he's going to have a long offseason to recover and then hopefully work with a team like the New England Patriots to really start to find his footing again at 27 years old in the NFL, coming off a big injury. And if he does end up coming to New England Patriots, you're looking at a guy that, yes, he didn't have his prime in 2023 when he played 14 games. Obviously, if you go back down to 2021, that's when you're looking at that 1,000-yard receiver. But he knows how to score. He knows how to catch. You can see that 50% of catches on targets in the last 3 years. That's kind of what Drake May needs. And Marquise Brown, knowing that he creates separation, he knows how to climb the ladder. He can be a good target for a guy like Drake May that tends to just kind of sling it a little bit with inaccuracy. Get him a older target that can really work around getting open for a rookie like Drake May. And these are just 3 targets that New England can go after. I didn't shoot for the fences here in terms and talk about Higgins and Amari Cooper and Chris Godwin, because there's going to be a lot of teams out there that are looking for a wide receiver, especially with some saying that this draft class is a little bit shaky when it comes to that position. So you can also go out for an Amari Cooper, a Chris Godwin, a Stephon Diggs, D-Hop. But those are just 3 guys I think New England can go out and needs to try and get right now. So my last question for you guys is, can we land a big name like that? You knew that Brandon Ayuk said that he didn't want to come to New England last year because of the inconsistency at quarterback. Calvin Ridley signed with the Titans, and now I don't even know where he is right now. DeAndre Hopkins. Is Calvin Ridley still with the Titans? DeAndre Hopkins is with somebody else. He's with the Chiefs. Thank you. So the whole point is, I do think that after this year, once they've seen Drake May play, they can land a name like Tee Higgins or somebody in that realm, but it may take a lot. So type Y for yes, type N for no. Maybe I'm being delusional. Who knows? And as always, if anything happens with New England, I will report about it right here on Patriots Today by Chat Sports. If you guys want free coverage, this is a channel for you. All you guys have to do is subscribe.